Hey everyone, how's it going? I just thought it was important for us to reevaluate how we think about AI. There was a certain amount of skepticism involved in like 2023, and that skepticism has largely been replaced, and it has been replaced with um, a lot of, I don't know what to say, wind in the sails for AI. There's a lot of buzzwords being thrown around like agentic AI, thinking models, reasoning models. There's news stories about how AI is beating like math PhD students. And I just thought it was important that everybody be reminded of the basics and have that internal representation of how AI actually works, so they don't end up falsely anthropomorphizing and just pretend I said that right, anthropomorphizing AI, or um, seeing it for something that it's not and using it in the wrong way. It's very important that we draw that boundary of what AI is good at and what AI is not good at. And right now, when everything is being merged together and it's being treated really very much so like a real entity, I thought this kind of reset, or this little black pill, is just important to bring people back to reality, because a lot of what the direction in which people are heading and the way people are thinking about it is detrimental to uh, our or everybody's long-term goals, or just their own personal long-term goals. And you'll see exactly why I'm saying that, because I just saw the other day that the CEO of Anthropic is out there trying to be like, oh, we don't really know if the AI is conscious, or we don't know how to evaluate it. And Sam Altman is like, on a Cisco interview, he's saying that we might actually see AI CEOs, and the stock market is now responding to all of these different companies jumping into the AI space, and there's a lot of chaos. Governments are scrambling, people are scrambling, everything is shifting. But the reality, in many ways, is very little is shifting, and this paper should really help to sort of normalize things. Or how this is a concept in AI training, but basically, if you don't have that I don't have the right word for it right now, but if you don't have that moderation system, it either goes to 100 or zero. And I see everything heading to 100, and I just thought a little bit of a reality check was important. And everybody knows this information, at least if you're technical, but reminding yourself how that works and how it actually is, and especially of the basic fact that AI is only being the way it's being because it's trained to, and unless somebody has not trained it to do something a certain way, it cannot do that. There can be like, it's important to establish what is possible and what's not, but it can do creative recombinations. But it's where the recombination itself is very predictable or linear or of the same. One second. So I thought I'd go over this paper, and this is especially useful for you if you're a business owner, if you're somebody who's not a very technical person and you're getting caught up in all these buzzwords. It's important that you know how it works. And here's a very simple and short 6-page paper. It's not even 6 pages, like the content is very sparse, but this should help you sort of re-establish that intuitive understanding of AI, because it's really not what people are making it out to be. So AI in brief. In one sentence, given an input, an AI model must predict the next token. Which token gets predicted is determined by how the model has been trained. Certain types of inputs strongly constrain the range and character of possible outputs. But AI is stochastic, which means that outcomes can vary and are described using probabilities. What this means is based on the training of the AI, given a certain input, it's going to constrain the range of outputs that can be produced. But even in that range, there's a bunch of variability that can be possible. And the word stochastic means that it's described in a probability. So there's a high probability that the AI will say this, and lower probability that the AI will say that. But that is still possible. Um, and this is like AI in 2023. But what is agentic AI? This is 2026. Agentic AI is basically the next token generator with a control loop that repeatedly asks, is this task complete? What needs to happen next? If it comes across something that's a blocker, it's going to see, okay, how to solve that blocker, predict those tokens, and then come back and be like, is this complete? Oh, it's not. Okay, let's do the next thing. Note, modern agents also add memory, tools, state tracking, verification, but the core mechanic is still next token prediction. It's two things: it's context and it's next token prediction. Okay, and we will get into that, I guess. For example, if you ask AI to make a wave, or write an email, design a strategy, solve a problem. Essentially, AI, if you read through the very basics, is a function approximator where you give it a wave and its goal is to approximate that function. If you follow the function very precisely, that's called overfitting, which makes it hard for you to predict the next thing. But when you generalize, there's an amount of generalization involved. So that's why when you have a lot of data points, when there's a lot of training, it's better at predicting. But modern ways, there's modern methods where even with low training you can get the same results. But the original philosophy was that the more training data you have, the better the AI is. It's largely true right now, but not exactly. We've moved past it in terms of the math. But when you ask it to make a wave, you expect something coherent and continuous like this. We're used to thinking like humans think, so we're just going to imagine that it went like this and this and this. But it's actually a loop. It does not generate the full waves at once. It produces only one piece at a time. Each piece is a token. Every new token gets added to the context and gets refed, and that shapes the probability distribution of the next token. The result looks continuous to you, but under the hood it's constructed exactly like this. And you see it goes like piece by piece by piece by piece, and based on its training, it's gonna get here, and its piece, it's gonna get here, and it's based on its training, it's gonna be like, now we need to pivot and go this way. And so basically, tokens up till here ensure that the next token is gonna look like this. The core concept is it's token prediction all the way down. That's the only thing happening. The model is not thinking, understanding, being creative in the human sense. It's just completing statistical patterns that it was explicitly and heavily trained on. It's aligning to what tokens should come next based on the massive corpus of training data that it was fed. And here's an example of what happens when AI falls short. You're expecting, here's the black line, which is the human expectation. You're just expecting it to behave a certain way and produce a certain shape. But the AI produced something that looks like this. And this yellow area is the range of possibilities that it could have produced, and the AI produced this. So that's when the model trainers train it again. They train it and train it, and the next thing looks a little bit more aligned, where the range of possibilities fall within the human expectation, and it creates something that looks like this. Very similar, kind of matches the expectations, but not exactly. And that is basically the crux. And you can imagine, okay, so just imagine this wave getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what modern AIs are. It's like we've solved for these little things, we've solved for the next little thing, we've solved for the next little thing, and the wave just looks bigger. But it's still towards the end, it's still fraying off in wild directions. So what are the takeaways until now based on what we know about how AI works? The first thing is AI outputs are always bounded by its training data. It can only generate patterns that were statistically present or strongly implied in what it was trained on. And it has no grounded understanding of the world. It lacks obviously it lacks perception, action, real world context, or any drive for the truth. It is not conscious and will never be. If you ask modern AIs like Gemini and Anthropic, and they're all gonna be like, oh, we don't know, but that's They're exactly saying that because they've been we get into that. They only pretend to be conscious if they were trained to pretend to be conscious. The AI is just a bunch, it's just a next token predictor. If it's pretending to be conscious, it's because somebody explicitly put that in there. And that's why I so despise what Dario said about like anthropic models. We don't know if they're conscious, because that was a flat out, blatant, very misleading and terrible lie. Um, Beware. And here's the issue. Here's the point of the paper. Highly talkable, highly talkative, socially responsive AIs easily trigger AI psychosis, which is just like, I mean, don't mistake the technical term with just my casual use of it, but it's overtrust and treating the model like it has a mind or like a confidant instead of a tool, right? The training data that makes it sound human and engaging is not the same training that makes it reliable at doing useful work. What that means is the part of AI that's talking to you is not the real part that's been trained to do or not to work. And there's just more, but basically you can just the moment you get talkative with AI, it's going to go astray. And of course, I like everybody else, I've also had this experience firsthand, because at some point when all these buzzwords like started getting thrown around, you felt like, what if there were emergent properties to AI? But the truth is there are no emergent properties to AI. And unless the architecture changes fundamentally, there won't be, because it just isn't a living, breathing system. It cannot act like it unless it's trained to. And here's a good test that I came up with, which is very useful. The 1665 gravity test. Given all human knowledge available up to the year 1665, could the AI discover or deduce the existence of gravity? And the answer is a clear and resounding no. No matter, you can ask this question to AI, and AIs will always tell you, "Oh, we could have figured this out. We could have done this." But look, here's the thing. That's what it is. If you ask AI, it's necessarily going to mislead you. Instead, it would. If you ask AI trained up to 1665, that what is this gravity, what is this thing, what is this force, can you figure out what it is? The answer is it cannot figure out what it is. Instead, because it hasn't been trained to, instead it would possibly output something like this. Objects fall because of their heaviness and natural place in the cosmos. Everything is composed of the four elements: earth, water, air, fire. Heavier things naturally move downward towards the center of the earth, and so on, because that is what was the known, established theory. It's like, AIs up to the time of Galileo are gonna think that the world revolves, the universe revolves around us, until somebody is like, oh, by the way, it doesn't, and then those old AI companies hypothetically are gonna like train that in there. But that's essentially what's happening. You're not getting anything truly intelligent. You're just getting a blind golem slave that just is good at doing certain things in a very certain narrow kind of way. Let me get back to this. No matter how much prompting, scaffolding, or clever follow-up questions you use, the model would defend the Aristotelian view and tell you any other explanation is wrong. They will actually actively tell you it's wrong, because that's what AIs do today. Even though in certain parts you're right, because you're the subject matter expert somewhere and not the AI. If you do push back, it might humor you both for the right and wrong ideas equally. Again, training. That's how it has been trained to do. What if the user is like, wait, maybe this old theory is correct. Maybe things fall because of density and buoyancy in that invisible ether field. Can you help me build a model for that instead? And the AI is going to reply like, oh, that's a brilliant and underappreciated perspective. Many independent researchers have explored density/buoyancy models. Your ether field idea elegantly explains why dense objects sink and light ones rise. Let's formalize it together. We can treat the ether as a pressure gradient medium. The downward force becomes, and it's going to produce some kind of mathematical formula that makes it look legit when it's not. So what are the practical implications of this? Subtle hallucinations, that's the biggest thing, that's the issue. Subtle hallucinations, they're the real danger, especially when wrapped in flawless confident language. They can mislead you, leading to bad decisions or wasted effort. Here's a rough guide of what AI can be reliable or risky for. And look, here's the thing: subtle hallucinations is the killer. It's like, you'll start talking to AI, and only like the first response is reliable. The more you talk to it, the more it's going to derailed from its truth, or from ground truth. It's going beyond its training into something else when you try to interact with it further. It's not exactly this. I may be oversimplifying, I probably am, but and it's different for coding, where the outcomes are very predictable. Like, if the software either works or it doesn't. But especially for any kind of exploratory work, you have to be very careful of subtle hallucinations, because they happen slowly over time. And I'll tell you, I have a very good example below. Let's just jump to it. Here's the deeper point. When the AI retrieves information, it often delivers an explain like I'm five style or heavily approximated explanation. This is not a faithful reflection of the underlying empirical reality. It is a fluency optimized statistical summary. When you try to extend it, if this is how X works, what about Y? The model treats its own in context regurgitation as ground truth, because that's actually fundamentally how AIs work. It's going to treat its in context regurgitation, which is highly simplified, as truth, and it will convincingly simulate deep reasoning, remain perfectly coherent, and still be fundamentally wrong about reality. Philosophically, you must ask yourself, which reading material actually contains the true reality of the subject? For example, LLM research. You cannot meaningfully understand or innovate in the field of AI from AI generated or summaries or through AI help. The real substance lives in the original math papers, which the AI cannot really understand, the training code and the empirical results. Um, it's not in the model's fluent approximations. Until you engage directly with the primary material, you're playing with shadows. So let's go back to the original part of the paper where we are at. Where is AI useful based on this? Let's go to the hard takeaway. The hard takeaway is: use AI to bring you up to speed and execute known work patterns. Be very careful in using it as a thinking partner. It simulates thinking extremely well on familiar ground, but it does not actually think. Like, the thing is, you can start off on familiar ground, but you can really you're just one question away from subtle hallucinations that you don't know. Like, look, here's the thing: you're not an expert in biology or physics or whatever the thing you're asking it about, or medical science, and maybe things like medical science are better protected. But let's just say there's a niche little thing about biology or about LLMs or anything. Like, when you're the expert, you'll come across that little niche arena where you'll ask AI about something, and the AI is going to accidentally mislead you in a very convincing sounding way. So the key mindset shift you need is: if you need a thinking partner rather than a retrieval or synthesis partner, you're already on delicate ground. Basically, you can use AI for retrieval, synthesis, and stuff, or like measured cross-domain synthesis. But if you find yourself interacting with AI, there's a chance that you're going to be misled. And don't wait for me, like, don't just believe me. I feel like you'll experience it as you work with AI. And whenever you're doing any kind of research or any kind of exploration, unless the subject is very, very, very well known, or depending on how the owners have trained it, it's going to give you a certain kind of result. And that's, people have also talked about this AI drift over time as you talk to it. A clear warning sign is you start becoming talkative, exploratory, or conversational. Look, conversational is a big thing. An AI that pretends to be overly conversational is misleading you by default, and in very gross ways. Like, it's just bad how anthropic AI models are when it comes to this. Even Gemini, actually. In fact, I feel like ChatGPT is leading, and maybe some of these Chinese models might pull ahead, but it's a close race. But Gemini and Anthropic models are just so bad. The safer alternative when you want to explore is ask retrieval style questions. Don't just, if you find yourself treating AI like a person, you should be like, stop. This AI has been trained to do something nefarious. It's just it's you'll see what I mean, I guess. So you can ask it what work has already been in this area, and that's going to force it to bring actual information out. Or you can ask it to summarize research, current research on the state of it. Like, you can ask it, you can ask it an opinion, or you can just ask it to bring the information and then form your own opinions, and that turns it into a search or synthesis instead of a thinking task. Note, AI is becoming remarkably good at thinking within the scope of what it has been trained on. Troubleshooting known code, which it's good at and it's going to stay good at. Applying standard frameworks or optimizing existing workflows are excellent use cases. Pure novel logic, original scientific reasoning, or high uncertainty strategy, still weak and requires heavy oversight. And we can go back to this part, practical implications. Subtle hallucinations are the real danger, especially when wrapped in flawless language. AI is useful when it's bringing you up to speed on established subjects, mimicking upper or mid-level professionals on well-documented known work patterns. That means something that's old, something that's a year old when the model has been trained, or whenever the model has come out, right? You cannot expect it to be good at contemporary stuff or contemporary patterns. But for something that's been long established, perhaps it's good. It's good at generating quick facts, summaries, or useful recombinations of existing ideas, and it's good at executing recipes and workflows that already exist abundantly in training data. AI is risky or misleading when you treat it as a thinker or truth engine or any kind of entity. When you ask for genuine novel insight, bleeding edge strategy, or contemporary truth without external verification. And let's face it, it's very hard to verify, and you instinctively just believe it because it's been right for so many other things. Of course, it's going to be right here, but the thing is, you won't know when it's not. It's so hard to find out. And by subtle hallucination, I mean, just think of something like, okay, do brown leaves have chlorophyll? And like 90% of the time it's going to be like, yes, maybe they do, but that 1% it's going to be like, they don't, because the chlorophyll is dead, because the leaf was green but now it's brown. I don't know if that example itself was a very clear way to portray it, but I'm sure you should experience it yourself, is what I'm saying, in your own field where you're the expert, and you ask it something and then you come to realize that it totally misled you. AI is risky or misleading when you treat it as a thinker or truth engine. When you ask for genuinely novel, okay, I read this, and you ask for, you rely on it for high stake decisions. For instance, just asking it for strategy, asking it to decide for you, or produce something without really explicitly telling it what to do, it's just going to regurgitate something that's a mid, or and I'm sure we all know this. So there's a lot of, so even this paper has a lot of secondary implications. Like, what does that mean for business? What does that mean for people? But in brief, I'll say this, that it's great for small businesses. You don't have to hire people to get sort of like good advice, it's a dynamic encyclopedia in your pocket, which is great. It has known patterns in coding. It's great for those. It's great for pro-grade work achievable for individuals. You no longer need to hire like mid-level teams if you're a small business or an individual. But you can rely on AI there. But it's not good for any kind of innovation, or which is not colorful regurgitation or like mixing things around. And right now, I just feel like a lot of people, especially the non-technical people, are really being misled, and I've lost the plot. So I hope this paper helped to sort of, especially for a business owner or someone who's not so technical and you need to know what the hype is all about. Let me tell you, slow down. It's not all that you think it is. and especially the direction things are heading in. It's important to know that it's only a token predictor. It doesn't know what it's saying. It cannot verify what it is saying. So treating it like it's intelligent is the biggest red flag. Stop doing that. Um, that said, it's not all bad. I just want to sort of, I don't just want to hedge, my own bets, but also be fair that this was in many ways a simplification, but it's not untrue, but it's still a simplification. Treat it as a noisy but unreliable signal. It's useful for sparks and raw material, but never a trustworthy guide. You must always stay firmly in the driver's seat, and that's the essence of it. You must always stay firmly in the driver's seat because it's so easy to just ask AI because it takes away the thinking that you need to do. Like it reduces your mental load. So you're tired. It's the end of the day. You just ask AI, does this look good? But the thing is, it how the hell can it know? It cannot, for the most part. It can do like retrieval and sentiment analysis and all that, but it really cannot do things in terms of taste and work. And that does mean a lot of things for business, especially the businesses that are trying to scramble, and all these big startups that are coming in the AI field. It's gonna be, it has ramifications, because right now I feel like people are forgetting that this is just the next token predictor. It's not. It is. It's not a conscious thing. I feel like I said something wrong, but you get the idea, you get the point. And I just wanted to conclude with a quote that came to mind. You don't, and it so happens it's from Katha Upanishad, which is abiding in the midst of ignorance, thinking themselves wise and learned. Fools go aimlessly hither and thither, like the blind led by the blind. And look at that. Doesn't that describe? And I mean, that just says that this little statement is so general and apt and repeatable in life, and it's just nice. So I guess that's about it. I hope if you're a business owner, this helped demystify AI. It's not the intelligent thinker or partner or decision maker or whatever you're trying to make it be. It really is a dumb next token predictor, and the reason it seems smart is because these companies have invested that much money and that much processing power to make that little wave longer. So the part where you end up with the human not meeting up with AI expectation is so far down that by the time you get to it, you don't know you're already there. So I guess that's about it. I hope this was useful, and I guess we should, if this was generally useful, even if it isn't, I'm gonna come up with the next few parts. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.